Artemis Fowl is based on a beloved book, apparently, that I have not read, and I am fully aware that I am out of the target audience for this movie. But I was excited when I got Disney Plus. I was like, oh, this trailer looked kind of interesting. You got a kid that deals, with a magical land of fairies, goblins, and dwarves, and has to fight off a giant troll, and he's a, descendant of a criminal mastermind father, played by Colin Farrell. So it's like, okay, hey, maybe it's like a fanciful Agent Cody Banks, or it's going to be like Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which I actually enjoyed. So while I'm not the target audience for this, I gave it a chance, and within 10 minutes, I fucking hated this movie. I absolutely goddamn hated it. Take Mortal Engines. Remember that movie where, it felt like they plopped you in the middle of a trilogy and didn't explain much of anything? And I pretty much hated that movie, and that movie is very divisive, even though it looked cool, didn't do all that well, and it didn't really explain a whole lot, just assumed you knew a whole lot. Apparently, they changed a lot of stuff from the book, which, again, I have not read, but boy, this movie is fucking rotten. So here's the plot, and just saying right now, I'm going to spoil just about everything right here, so that's your warning. I did not like this movie at all. So, Colin Farrell is the father of Artemis Fowl. He is kidnapped because he has this device called the Oculus, not the Oculus, not the killer mirror that was actually a pretty decent, concept from that movie, Oculus. No, it's a device that only fairies can use, and if humans try to use it, it will kill them, but it's this magical device that can do a lot of shit. They don't really explain a whole lot during this, and maybe that's just because my brain was starting to tune out because I fucking hated this goddamn thing from the word go. But I'm like, okay, I can do worse here, and honestly, some of these movies can be fun. This wasn't even that fun. The fairies had this weird magic time freeze thing where they were doing this, but then Artemis Fowl Jr., which they might as well have called him that, is a smart 12-year-old boy that just wants to get his father back. And then there's this fairy guard named Short, who wants to find the people that killed her father. So both of them want to find out what, one wants to get their father back, one wants to find out what happened to her father. They have that common bond. And then there's a whole bunch of dialogue exchanges and everything, and a lot of stuff where you just have to be, you have to apparently be a major fan of the book, or you just have to be completely fucked up in the head and just say, yeah, I'm just going to take all this stuff in and enjoy this. I don't even know if kids will necessarily like this, because I watched some fucking movies when I was a kid, like that maybe haven't aged all that well, but I can't imagine too many kids are going to enjoy this, because anything that is explained, it's like, okay, here's just a lot of the stuff as it is. Fairies, goblins, and dwarves exist in this weird haven city, and there's this mutiny among everybody, and Judi Dench sounds like she smoked 2 packs a day for the last 60 years, which I don't fucking get at all, but she's the leader of the group of fairies. The winged creatures, by the way, just in case you're wondering what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's this weird fantasy crazy movie that isn't really all that good, and just goes down and down and down, and is some of the most cliched motherfucking bullshit, and the special effects are fucking rotten. This is from Kenneth Branagh, who directed Murder on the Orient Express, and has directed a bunch of stuff, and starred in a whole bunch of stuff, and he has been known to make some pretty good movies, and this wasn't it. This was one of the worst damn things I've seen. I mean, from the beginning, you had this opening narration from this character Mulch, who's this dwarf, well, this really, really tall dwarf, or is he a really tall dwarf? We have to find that out. And he's telling the story in this prison, and he's doing this narration stuff. Remember Quest of the Delta Knights, that MST3K episode? It kind of reminds me of that. Only this movie had a budget. It had a pretty big budget. But at the same time, it also felt like you're watching something that really shouldn't have been put in theaters. And thank fucking Christ this wasn't put in theaters, because if it was, I would have absolutely goddamn hated it. And I didn't expect to necessarily despise this movie, but this is almost as bad as when I watched Fantasy Island. Fantasy Island I at least could get some laughs out of, but I would put this right up there with hating it as much as Mortal Engines, except Mortal Engines at least adds something to it. This has no meat and potatoes or anything, and anybody that has any kind of strife, it's easily remedied. Oh, the magic's turned off from the fairies when they try to invade Artemis Fowl's house. And then suddenly, oh no, it's not. They turned it off because this mutiny suddenly overthrown, and then this one butler, who's actually, that's his last name, Butler, is rescued from death and brought back to life. And then suddenly Colin Farrell's just back there because they activate the Oculus or the Oculus or the Artemis or whatever the hell, the Ark of the Covenant. That's what they fucking should have called it, because that's where this movie should be stored, where the Ark of the Covenant was stored. In fact, I felt my face melting while watching this. I didn't like this movie very much, and I don't expect that anybody's going to necessarily agree with me, or maybe you will. I don't know. Again, haven't read the books, and apparently they changed a whole lot of stuff about the books, but everything about this was just infuriating because I'm watching this and it's so many cliches, so much bullshit, and any of the good stuff that they could have gotten out of this was just weighed down by a whole bunch of like nothing. Nothing really got accomplished. His father gets kidnapped and then suddenly his father's back, and it doesn't feel like it went anywhere. It felt like, it just literally went in a circle, or actually literally felt like it just stopped. It just stopped, and like just a few things happened around it, and the movie never really went anywhere. And then the fairy girl finds information about the men that killed her father. And then also there's this weird creature that kidnapped Colin Farrell's character and is now going to be part of the sequel hook or whatever. Artemis Fowl even says, "Oh hey, we're gonna come get you. We're gonna do all this." And it's a sequel hook. And then the dwarf guy gets rescued and everything's all good and hunky dory and everything. This movie gets a fucking F. This movie gets a goddamn F. I can't even go on with this. I can't even go on. That's the review right there. I fucking hated this movie. Agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.